Hi, this is a bonus episode. Sometimes I get invited to interview a particular behind the scenes artist, and I've decided I should say yes to them and get them out as bonus episodes. So, in this bonus episode, I spoke with stunt coordinator Krista Perry. Krista is a native Californian who grew up traveling the country at the age of 8 for competitive swimming, finishing out her career as an All American swimmer in the state of California. She is now a stunt performer and stunt coordinator, most recently working on Killers of the Flower Moon and the series Reservation Dogs. So here's my conversation with Krista. I hope you enjoy it. Krista, thanks for joining me. How did you get started in an industry that is particularly male-dominated, and how was that transition from your previous career?
I got started in the industry based on being an athlete prior in my growing up life. I was a swimmer, and so I was chasing the Olympic dream. As we watched the Olympic trials this weekend, I was like, "Oh, there's some people from my team there." But that's kind of how I got started, and then I just let some stunt coordinators know what my skills were, and if an opportunity ever arose, I'd love a chance to be a part of it. And then 3 years later, it did, and then I just went running with it.
And is that start as an athlete? Were you an athlete that also watched movies? Were you a fan of movies? Because I know being an athlete, not that I've ever been anywhere near one myself, but I know that takes up a lot of time, a lot of dedication, early mornings, particularly with swimming. Did you have that passion of movies at the same time as well?
I like to watch movies growing up, but I feel like most of the time I was swimming or dry land. We would swim 4 days a week before school, after school, for probably like 5 hours a day. And then the weekends, it was like a 3.5 hour practice. So it was very disciplined, which really translates into the stunt industry of being a part of a team and discipline and, just being a good person all around. I think that's what the whole business is about, which is exactly what being an athlete is.
Yeah, being part of a team as well, like you mentioned, seeing some of your team members there doing the trials, I guess just having that ability to sort of make friends and make connections with people is a big part of working in the film industry, right?
Yeah, and being able to trust people that you're working with, and if they have your life on the line, you want to 100% trust that you don't have to second guess it. It just comes supernatural. Just like when you swim, you have muscle memory. I feel like when we do stunts, it's the same thing. We've rehearsed it, we know the beats, and we just have to do it. We can't overthink it because we already know what to expect. And that reminds me of being an athlete.
Yeah, I actually work in live sport myself in broadcast. So I've shown many athletes their technique before. I was on one event in Myanmar, in Burma, years ago, and this woman was doing the 100 meters hurdles, and she'd never seen herself hurdle before. And giving her a package
Mm.
of super slow motion shots of her doing that, which kind of blew her mind. But I would imagine in the film industry, you have now in the digital age, you have that advantage as well now of kind of looking at playback and just checking your form and checking that things feel right and look right, well, or look right if they didn't feel right.
That's funny you mentioned that. It just sparked my memory. As a kid, my swim coach would rig in a plastic bag underwater camera, and he would watch our strokes. And so when we work with actors to teach them action, I always try to show them back what they're doing and something that we can improve on or correct, or what's working and how awesome it looks from the angles that we're selling it from. So at a young age, I learned that watching myself helps. So even when I'm on the golf course, I'm like, I feel like I'm standing up, but then I feel like it's perfect. But then I see it, I'm like, whoa, that was a horrible shot. I stood completely up. Where are the sticks?
Yeah, that body awareness must be amazing to have. Some people just don't have it right. And what is the challenge in working with some of these actors who come on board a project where maybe they lack a bit of that kind of awareness of, the extremities of their body? Do you find that a difficulty sometimes working with actors who do or do not have those skills?
Well, if that's the case, then we throw the double in because we always have a backup plan. So yeah,
Yeah.
most of the time I feel like people we work with, they're methodical with how they see their character, that they're able to take direction because they have a lot of experience. But if it's not working, that's why we have a double.
Being a double, I'm sure you've been a double on many shows and many films. Being a double, do you have to kind of have an awareness of the character as well? Because of course you want to kind of and the person themselves, the actor themselves, because you want to kind of replicate their physicality, right?
Yeah, it's funny when we are working on set, I'll usually try if I'm like a guest on the show, I'll grab what's called the sides and I'll read them really quick and I'll be like, okay, what's the scene? What's happening? Am I the hero? Am I the loser? Like just so I can understand what's happening for the day. And they usually always have those in the hair and makeup trailer. So I'll kind of read up on what's going on and then I study the actress. So if we're about to, go to picture and they're doing stuff before, I'll watch their movement. Are they left-handed? Are they right-handed? So if I'm going to grab a knife with my right hand, but they're left-handed, it makes no sense to do that. So I really watch like what their mannerisms are, how their posture is, just things like that. And I think being an athlete and correcting yourself really excels in this business for that as well.
Yeah. Do you get like a script fairly early on? And now that you're a stunt coordinator on like Reservation Dogs, for instance, do you get a script early on so that you're able to sort of hone those things that you just talked about?
Yes, when I'm a stunt coordinator, I have the script far in advance because we have to go to pre-production and meet with people, talk about the meat of what they want to see, what we're going to double them, like all the things that are needed to make it successful, or if we need to alter it at all. But if I'm playing on a show and I'm doubling and I'm just coming in and out, I might not ever really know what's going on. And so, I mean, I know what action I'm going to do, but I don't really know the story because that's not really, you just don't read it.
And I
Yeah.
guess you've got the script early on as well as a coordinator because you need to break down those scenes and kind of figure out
Mhm.
what needs to be a stunt, what needs to be a VFX or a combination of the two. Do you ever find that you come across scripts where they're a little over ambitious for the the level of stunt or even the kind of budget aspect?
I feel like most of the time people understand what we're working within and the constraints. So we really try to figure out with the director what is the most important things they want to see, and then we tailor it from there. So I'm very like open with like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is where my thoughts are. What do you guys think? So then it becomes
Mm.
a nice conversation to find what the most important beats are for the storytelling.
And how has VFX, which I mentioned in that question before, affected your work, given that, a car stunt, for instance, 10, 15, 20 years ago would always have been a car. And now it might not be a physical car, it might be a VFX car. Has that kind of made a dent into your industry, or have you just kind of found ways of adapting around that?
I think we found ways of adapting around it because we still shoot the previs, which is called pre-visualization of what we're going to
Sure.
do, and then they can go in and change things or make it different. But we still, work closely with the actors, and we're still practical. And I've been very practical with everything I've been a part of in my career, so it's been really awesome to be in that realm still.
Yeah. I read, and I hope it was correct, that you started off in hair and makeup in the industry and then made the transition to stunts. I mean, that's a, pun not necessarily intended. That's a hell of a leap to go
Yeah,
from there to there. How did that come about? What was the circumstances?
yeah, that's like I say, my best kept secret that people either figure out or they don't. So yeah, we're working in hair. I work very closely with stunt performers. And
Yeah.
so, I'm making them look the best they can. And then people find out that I do stunts or that my background is. And so I've been very lucky to have a group of people that have supported me. And, it's like I have really two awesome careers that going more towards the stunt direction, but I can't help that I'm good at two things, I guess I should say.
Because the industry does have a tendency to kind of pigeonhole people, doesn't it? If you do one, and
Oh,
I work in the TV industry as well, that happens there where, you'll do one job and that's all people see you as. How difficult was it for you to kind of break out of that mold?
I feel like I'm really lucky to work with people that know me. So I feel like the
Mm.
people that know me support me and it doesn't become a thing and I just push forward. I work really hard. I've been a very dedicated athlete for many years. And so I think once people know that, they're just like completely fine. It's not even a thing because I'm always
Yeah.
helping them make the best that they can look for the person that they're doubling. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said at the start, doesn't it, about forging those relationships. So what was that the first stunt you ever did? I mean, how do you suddenly decide, right, I'm going to do a stunt, and what is appropriate for a stunt performer who's not done that work before?
So I had some background in jujitsu, and my first stunt ever was going through a door that was balsa wood. And so we were painted like burnt witches on a show called The Pale Door. And yeah, I rehearsed it a bunch of times beforehand. And it was a move through a door right before a banister. And it was in my wheelhouse of, hitting the ground pretty hard. And that was my first ever stunt on camera, which is pretty cool because sometimes you can be like nondescript and you're by a car that's going fast. So I got to do some action for my first stunt. And it was really great because those guys have then since hired me on their projects. And we've built a really, really great relationship. And I was actually just telling Aaron Kuntz the other day that you picked me. That's changed my whole trajectory of my career. And he's like, oh, that makes me so happy because I get to be a part of that.
Great. Yeah, because I guess, like in any field, you've got that shorthand now with a particular team where you've got that sort of level of unspoken communication as well. I'm sure you have to obviously speak a lot about the stunt you're about to perform, but it's good having that shorthand, isn't it, with people you're familiar with. How do you, though, create that sort of level of trust that people have to trust in you as a coordinator, that performers, new performers come along? How do you foster that relationship?
I feel like everybody that I work with, we're all in a network, so we all know each other. And so it's usually through recommendation or references, or someone knows that, oh, I worked with this person. I really never work with new people. It's usually like the same kind of circle of people that are pretty deep, but you know what I mean? So it becomes very family and trusting, and your network is really strong. So I feel like I haven't really worked with a lot of new people in a long time.
Does that include working with animals as well, that you work with the same animals again and again? Because obviously when you're working with humans, you've got that certain level of control and communication. You bring in a horse and of course it adds a sort of wild card to the situation, potential danger there with a beast.
So sometimes horses can be the same. On a project I work on, it's called Jim Bridger. The wrangler there, Dutch, and his daughter Megan, they've been in the business since like Last of the Mohegans, like he has. And his horses are just top notch. They can take reactions to gunfire. And so when you're working on his sets as a wrangler that he has awesome horses. So it's really trusting, whoever's getting on the back of one of those horses are going to be super safe. But when you work on other shows, you kind of have to figure out like, what kind of horse are we spooking, or kind of get a feel for it.
A lot of the work on Reservation Dogs seems to be about the action is sort of comedy action. Does that have do you have to take a different approach when it's kind of comedic action?
Yeah, I feel like the timing of everything, and when you're working with the act, you rehearse it more, and that's what I like to do more visual work because comedy timing with action timing.
Do you ever get involved in the casting of people for the show, in terms of bringing certain people in that have got certain abilities, like, on a show like Reservation Dogs, somebody's got to ride a horse potentially and, do a certain amount of stunt work and be able to talk at the same time, maybe in another language. Is that something that you get involved with as a coordinator?
Absolutely. That was one of the things when I'm breaking a script down and I see a tinier role, I feel like we need to put a stunt actor in here if there's action involved. Like, why cast an actor and then double that actor when we can just use a stunt actor? So when I break a script down, I will make that known to casting and our producers and our director that here's a pot of people we can choose from that have backgrounds in acting and stunt work so that they can choose somebody that's called a stunt actor. And so with Reservation Dogs, that's exactly what we did. But we were searching for such a niche with someone who could speak Spanish, someone who could ride a horse, and someone who can act. And we actually found a really great candidate, which was Eric Mandane out of Florida. And he did such an amazing job. He was so funny. He had great chemistry with the cast. And so it was really fun to watch that evolve after weeks of prep.
Great to be involved from sort of the ground up, I imagine, like on a project like that.
And what's really funny? His audition tape, he was in a wheelie chair and he was pretending to be a horse. And so it was so funny. I was like, oh, he's got it. Like, I checked some references on him and I'm like, you're the guy. Like, that was hilarious. Like, he just rode around on a wheelie chair during his audition. And I was like, that was it. Just made it epic.
Ticked all the boxes. You also worked on Killers of the Flower Moon, which is, a huge project with a huge director. Is that work you kind of relish, working on a big production like that and having a part in that? Or do you prefer it when you're stunt coordinating on a smaller show that might require, more of your capabilities?
It's tough to say. I like both because I feel like when you're on a big show, it's a huge team. So that was really awesome to work on. And then just that caliber of a film, like being on that set, it was like transforming. And I saw Leo walk past me and like, whoa, because I wasn't expecting it, and watching Titanic as a kid. I mean,
Yeah.
I ever get starstruck because it's just our daily life. But when you see somebody of Leo's magnitude, it is like shocking.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was really great. And then, I take a back seat and I take direction, and, it's nice to learn from other coordinators, to watch other people work. So I'm always like, I like both, to be honest. It's a great thing to do both.
Yeah. It's all feeding into what you do, isn't it? Whatever the size of the job, I guess, and you'll meet new people and bring them in potentially into other projects. Couple of last questions then. Do you think there should be Oscars for stunts? That's the first one. Go for
You want
that.
me to answer that first?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I think that the stunt performers and the stunt coordinators for the last decades, they are so incredible that it would be amazing to showcase their hard work and their talents and their revolutionary contributions to the industry of how things have changed. But at the same time, like, those people, they're so cool and they're so badass that they don't care, I feel like. But it would be amazing to be like, this is the one, this was the best rigging, this was the best, comic stunts, and then this was the best, car work. I mean, everybody has such a niche, and all these great coordinators, they do it for the heart and soul. But it would be amazing to like celebrate how amazing they pulled off these feats to create amazing ensembles.
All right, that's a good answer. I agree with you. I think it should be in there. And lastly, then, do you have any aspirations to direct in the future? Because there's been stories in recent years with stunt performers becoming stunt coordinators and then moving on to second unit and then on to directing features. Is that something that you've got your eyes on?
I actually got to direct my first second unit project for a show. It was called The Tag Scene. So it's at the end of the credits. I was kind of thrown it a couple days before, and I called one of my friends who's a director, and he was the same. He was a stunt performer, stunt coordinator, second unit, then a director. So I was like, hey, I have a question. Like, what do you think? And he said to me, take the black and white pages and take it into the room with you. And I was like, wow, that was deep. So then I came into the room, I visualized, and we put together this little action sequence that unfortunately never came out. But a part of me was like, this is it. Eventually, this would be pretty amazing. Working towards.
Cool. Well, I wish you luck and I appreciate your time today,
Thank you so much.
Krista. Nice to talk
Thank
to you.
you. You as well. Thank you so much.